Hi guys, it's Nick here with the Whip Shop, and I have for you tonight a tutorial on wrist loops. But before we get to that, real quick I'd like to introduce you to this material. This is a double stick mesh tape, and its original use is for floor mats to keep them from sliding around. But I've been using this material for about a couple months now, and I found that it's excellent material for bolsters on nylon whips, especially around the transition. Because it's a mesh material, it allows wax to pass right through it, unlike tape. So if you're into waxing your nylon bullwhips, this material is very ideal for that. It's strong and it's a bit stretchy, and gives the whip plenty of life and springiness to it. Now, I found at times while binding the bellies of my nylon bullwhips, the artificial sinew will sometimes slip in between the spaces in the 550 paracord, and this material creates a net and a surface so that the strands stay on top, keeping everything nice and tight. Also, a quick announcement. I'm going to be leaving on the 27th of this month for a road trip across the United States to California. My bro Danny is leaving. It's sad, he's moving there, but I wish him all the best, and I've agreed to ride along with him to California, and I'll be catching a flight back on September 5th. So during that time, I might be a little bit hard to reach, but when I get back, I'll check my emails and answer all of your questions. So, I hope you like this video, and I hope you find it helpful.
Okay, so the whip that we're going to be working on tonight is a 10-foot 18-plat nylon bullwhip. And obviously the overlay is complete, and I've just neatened things up here a little bit at the heel. And this is where our wrist loop is going to go. That's going to be the first step, is attaching the wrist loop. So I've just neatened things up, like I said, used the lighter to melt some of the strands, filed down the steel rod, obviously I cut it off. And underneath that electrical tape there that you see, I wrapped it a few times with this artificial sinew. It's great stuff. And that's just holding everything nice and tight. So now it's time to get to work on the wrist loop. Alright guys, the first step is to cut 4 strands of equal length. So here's my strands here. I got 3 black and 1 olive green because that's the theme of the whip. Now this wrist loop is going to be half the length of these strands, so it's going to be something like this. I may trim it, that might be a little long, but it's better to be a little too long than short. So now you're going to take the 4 ends of these strands and put them in a clamp of some sort. If you have a vise, that's very helpful. You can tie them onto something, but a clamp is going to be much better. So put them in the vise if you have one. All right, so we've got, as you can see, we have the 4 strands are in our vise here. I'm going to take them like this, and this is just going to be a 4-strand flat braid, pretty much the same as for hair. Okay. We're going to take these 2 inner strands and cross them. I'm going to take my right and put it over the left like that. I'm going to take this one and put it under. And it's the same. Plaiting is pretty much plaiting. It's all the same. This is just flat. Take this strand now. We're going to go, see how this one goes under the green? Now we're going to go over the green. Over and under the black one. And that's the whole pattern. Take this far right one, and it's the same. If you've watched my other videos, I talk about the strand on the surface furthest down points to the upper right. Same principle with this flat braid. Grab this one. I'm going to go, because this one goes over, we'll go under. Surface strand points to the upper left. Now we're going to go over, under, and snug them. Not too tight. We're just going to keep on going. Over, under. This one. Over and under the green. And just keep on doing that the whole way, okay? Here's a little better view for you. This strand, upper right, left, over, under, back to the right, under, back to the left, over, under, a little tug there. Back over to the left, we'll go over and under, a little tug. So there's just a little bit of a better view for you. And that's the whole wrist loop. So keep on plating the wrist loop until you got about an inch or two left. And then we'll pick up there. Once we reach the end here, this is where I would like to end the wrist loop. This is the technique that I like to use to end it and to keep it from unraveling. I'm going to take these two strands and just tie them together like this. Just a basic knot here. Tie that nice and tight. And I'm going to do the same thing with these two strands here. Just going to take them like this and just tie a knot. Simple knot. Snug it real good. Not. If you do too much, this is what's going to happen. It's going to pull on it and make it look real sloppy. So undo that if you did it too much. And this is just going to temporarily hold it from becoming unraveled. Do the same thing to the other side. Alright, so here's our wrist loop. And if you need to, just kind of pinch it with your thumb and your forefinger here and just make sure everything's nice and flat. Take a good look at it, make sure nothing's wrinkled. And if everything looks good, you can pinch it at the two knots here, and you can see how long it's going to be. So this is a pretty good size wrist loop, nothing excessive and nothing too short so where you can't squeeze your wrist in there. When I was beginning making whips, I made a few wrist loops that were about this big, so you couldn't even get your wrist in there. So just make sure that, try it out before you even attach it to the whip. And keep in mind, if your two knots are here, pinch it about an inch in, because that's how far it's going to be on the heel. It's going to be about an inch, and then you can get a realistic size of what it's going to be like. So it's going to be about like this. It's very important to make sure that it fits before you attach it to the whip. Otherwise, you'll be making more work for yourself. So with that being said, now we can mount it to the whip. Alright, so we have the handle of our whip securely placed in our clamp. We're going to take one side of our wrist loop here, and as you can see here is where we tied those knots so it's not going to come unraveled. At this point I'm going to take some electrical tape and tape it down, and this is just going to temporarily hold it in place. A lot of people freak out when they see a whip maker take out electrical tape, and it is very useful tape. It really is. In this case it's only being used temporarily to hold it in place. And it's not taking the weight of the wrist loop, it's just holding it in place. Alright, so we're just going to do this. And I'd like that to be a little further down, like this. Just like that. I'm going to tape it down. We're going to do the same thing with the underside. And try to get these even. Try not to have it offset. Try to get them perfectly even and make sure that, it's centered. Perfect top, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, not 12 o'clock, 7:30 or 8, otherwise it's going to be lopsided. So you want it perfectly on the top and bottom. So make sure that it's even, like this. Once I see that it's in the center, actually I'm going to do this first. I'm going to take the tape and just lay it on there so that way it's just holding it for me, like this. Didn't put that on evenly. Let me try that again. And we're going to be going over this many, many times with artificial sinew, and we're actually going to stick nails through this wrist loop so it's not going anywhere. Like I said, there's a lot of people whom I will not name are very uncomfortable with using electrical tape on whips, even if it's to hold something down. Okay, double check that. Everything looks good. Top and bottom. Now it's time to take artificial sinew and start wrapping very tightly to really hold this thing in place. And I'm going to have to reposition this camera because it's very close and it's going to keep me from tightening it. This particular customer that's ordering this whip from me, he likes to hang on to he likes to put his hand through the wrist loop and let the knot swivel in the palm of his hand. So there's going to be quite a lot of stress on this wrist loop, especially this being a 10-foot whip. Also, since it's going to be a waxed whip, it's going to be a heavy whip compared to a 6-foot whip. So I really want to make sure that there's no chance that this wrist loop's going anywhere. And by the time we get done with it, it won't be going anywhere. Sometimes the wrist loop will slip on you, so make sure. Sometimes here's what I like to do. I like to go one way, cut the strand, secure it, and then go the other way to counteract that twisting motion. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and grab something to snip this with. And then to secure this, I like to just tie a little knot here. Artificial sinew it's a sticky material, so it'll stick on itself and makes it very convenient for ending a strand. So there we go. It already feels very, very stiff here. It's just what we want. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to cut the top and bottom strands here. What do I mean by that? I mean we're going to trim. We're going to trim right here with a very sharp blade, carefully trim this off, and the same thing to the bottom. Alright, I've got a fresh razor blade here. I'm going to trim this here. Might help to untie those little knots that we did to keep the wrist loop from unraveling, and then just hit them one at a time here like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now rotate it in the vise and do the same exact thing to the bottom. Make sure we're still in frame. We are. Good. I'm not going to untie this, I'm just going to cut them all at once here. Be very careful when you do this. You don't want to cut into your overlay on the handle. Alright, good. Lightly hit this with a lighter. Flatten that down and turn it over again. Do the exact same thing to the top. And you can see we're just kind of molding these down. Good. Okay. Now right now, our handle's a little bit lopsided. Obviously on the top and bottom, it's raised up. It's not an even cylinder anymore. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take leather, cut out squares, and fill in here on the sides where the wrist loop isn't there, and pull these areas out to make a perfect cylinder. So that'll be the next step. Here you can really see what I'm talking about how these wrist loops here where they're connected, it bulges it out, and it's more of a football shaped instead of a round circle. So here's these two, these are some leather strips that I cut out. I held up my sheet of leather here and measured how big of a piece we needed, and here they are. So these are going to, zoom in here, these are going to go on the top and bottom just like this. And this is going to bring this part out and make it as tall as this part here on the sides. We're going to go over that again with some more electrical tape and artificial sinew. So let's attach those. So it's time to fix these little strips of leather to the whip. So once again, I'm going to grab some electrical tape to temporarily hold things in place. And we'll start with this one. Make sure it's nice and even. It looks good. We're going to turn it over. Do the same thing with our other one here. Okay, now that we have the top and bottom section of the square of leather, we're going to take a look here and see. Now we have a nice cylinder. It's not a perfect cylinder. We won't get that perfect cylinder until we roll it. But now I'm going to take this artificial sinew and go over it. Once again, this is going to be real tight. Alright. Nice and tight. And tie this. At this point, we're going to take it out of the clamp and we're going to roll it. Just got a piece of cedar here. And I'm just kind of, you might find that it's a little bumpier than you anticipated it to be. So if you need to beat on it a little bit, you can even use a rubber hammer for this. I'm just trying to get everything nice and level here. Now I can roll it much better. Examine it real quick. Everything looks good. It's time to move on. At this point, we got everything nice and round. Everything's looking smooth. Everything is fairly tight as it is. But we're going to finish off the foundation with, here I have a piece of about 12 ounce cowhide here. You can get an idea of how thick that is. It's almost a 1/4 inch. And all I'm doing now is I'm just going to hold it up to here and wrap it around, and then where where this piece here meets here, I'm actually just going to mark it with my fingernail. And all I'm doing here is I'm cutting out a piece that wraps all the way around evenly. So here is a strip of leather that I've measured out, and it seems to be the correct proportions here. As you can see, they meet about here. Try to avoid having the seams meet directly over where the wrist loop goes. Instead, turn it sideways and have it meet on the side here. To make it easier, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this. So, holding this down tightly, I'm pulling tight. Grab some tape. temporarily hold these pieces, hold the edges together. And this is some tough leather, so you might find that it's very difficult to hold these ends jointed against each other here. Alright, you get that, and you can find that once they're joined, you'll be able to turn the whole thing here, just like that. We're going to get some artificial sinew and really start wrapping it. And with this artificial sinew, the reason that we're wrapping it every time is we're doing what the tape can't do. Tape is going to wear out, so we're just simply holding everything down permanently. Be careful around the edges here. The tape or the sinew will slip off like that. So get very close to the edge, but not too close to where the sinew is slipping. That hurt really, 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 really bad. There we go. Nice and tight. Okay. We're going to give it one last layer, but not yet. Let's take a look at this here for a minute. So our cylinder is nice and round here. So you can see there's still just a slight oval shape to it. Don't worry about that. That's going to be taken care of on the final roll once the knot is tied. Let's take a look at the front. And this is a very, very secure foundation. It's about to be more secure because we're actually going to put in some nails here, trim nails. And this is going to anchor everything down. As it is, this would probably do the trick, at least for a few months. But over time, so much stress on that wrist loop, it's going to be pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling until one day it might just slip right off. These, we're going to keep that from happening. We're going to insert nails. The first set of nails are going to be 3 nails. We're going to go, oh, that's not a good angle. First one's going to go in here. And the nails are going to go straight through the leather, straight through the wrist loop, all the way to the core. 1, 2, 3. Same for here. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to just continue putting those nails in and make sure that we have a nice strong foundation. Okay. Time to put these nails inside here. If you've seen any of my other videos, I do this for the foundations as well. Snip the end off here. Turn it here so we have the wrist loop is facing straight up. Take this, and plunge it right in, right through the wrist loop. Should be able to just press it like this. Here's our first nail. We're going to need to go through and snip this off here, perhaps even file down these places that we cut. Next nail, 2 of 3 on each wrist loop, on each side of the wrist loop. That one went in a little bit A little better than the first one. I may put one more on the top here where we started just to be sure. There we go. One more on the top here. That one went in much better. I feel a lot more comfortable about that. Flip it over. We're going to get the other side. And the reason I'm snipping the heads off of these nails, so when they go into the leather, they don't pull the leather down. I've had that happen a few times. Okay, so we stop it about here. The first one. A better view for you guys. I'm just, instead of hammering it, I sometimes have to, but there we go. It's in there pretty good. Seen some whip makers use staples for this, which is, you know, it works. I like to be on the safe side and drive nails through it. That one didn't want to go in. It was a rusty one. There we go. They kind of go in with a satisfying crunch. Good. Okay, so we got our 3 nails in on each side, top and bottom. This is very, very, very secure. We're going to continue with these nails. We're going to go put a line here, on the other side, in between, so it's going to go 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, a bunch of nails in here. I'm not going to get that part on video because I understand, pretty sure you guys know what I'm doing. Same thing here. So, I'll be back. Alright, so we got all of our nails in place, 360 degrees all the way around this foundation. It's probably about 24 nails total. It's time consuming, but it's worth it. It's worth it to take that extra, 30 minutes to get those nails in than it is the whole thing to come off and have to redo it. So it may look like overkill, probably is, but I like to be safe. Now we're going to roll this foundation on the floor once more, get it nice and round, and we'll be done. Okay guys, we just rolled this on the floor. We rolled the foundation one more time and just kind of prepped it for the knot that's going to be tied over here. Our wrist loop is nice and tight. Our nails are nice and smooth. You might need to file those down though, so they don't poke through and scrape and tear the parachute cord when you're tying the knot. So if you'd like to, you can go over this once more with artificial sinew, perhaps a darker color, because when you tie a knot, this knot is going to be dark. Sometimes the bright white paracord will shine through, especially in sunlight. It'll shine through the seams in the knot and the spaces between the paracord, and it makes it look bad. So I might actually hit this with some darker artificial sinew before I tie that knot on. Other than that, this is ready to go. It's ready to, the knot's ready to be tied on, and this whip will be ready and done. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to show the tying of the knot, because I have many other videos on how to tie Turk's head knots, so please refer to those. Same thing guys, just tie that knot right over this. Alright guys, well there's the finished product. Got a 4-strand wrist loop, and the knot has been tied over the foundation. And if you guys need help tying that knot, no worries, I've put a video link in the description. It'll take you to one of my tutorials on how to tie those knots. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something from this video. Hope it was informative. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.